Hello, this is Dr. Sheldon Watson, and in this video, I'm going to present you with an overview of the EDD in Educational Leadership program at CCSU. We are currently recruiting for our 2022 cohort. Our application deadline is November 1 of fall 2021, and the admitted cohort will begin classes in the summer of 2022. We are admitting for applications in both our P12 and higher education administration strands, and this will be our first time doing a blended cohort in which both of those strands take some classes together. At CCSU, in our program, we really believe in leadership for an emerging future. And you can encounter these ideas throughout our programs and our classes and when you talk to faculty individually. We're committed to the nurturance, support, and development of educators who contribute to, create, and influence systems with intentionality, humanizing approaches, and capacity to affect change in communities. From the level of the classroom to the world, we envision the highest purpose of education to be to help societies thrive by promoting and integrating robust well-being, sustainable development, and relationships grounded in responsibility and care. We strive to prepare leaders in both the P12 and higher education environment who can act on these types of principles. A few things that we do that are illustrative of these ideas include our adoption of the UN Sustainable Development Goals as one part of the guiding framework for our work in relationship to equity, justice, and community development. And another idea is what we call the CALL, the Community Action Leadership Lab. This is a fairly new idea that we developed just before the start of the pandemic, and we're preparing to launch in the coming year. And the idea behind the call is to bring together diverse stakeholders from different areas of education and the community to work together on complex problems that tend to resist change and improvement when addressed in isolation. Our EDD program at CCSU has a record of success and leadership in Connecticut. The 2022 cohort will be our 12th cohort overall. In the past, we have admitted cohorts every other year, but we're starting now to move towards a model where we admit a new cohort every year. So the number of cohorts that we're going to have is going to increase. And in the past, we were primarily a P12 program, but in 2015, we also added higher ed, and we are in the process of finishing up the students in our second higher ed cohort. So we're looking forward to doing that again. We have granted degrees to over 170 educational leaders throughout the state of Connecticut. These graduates work as teacher leaders, as both P12 and higher education administrators, as school superintendents, and some of them work as higher education faculty. In fact, we have 2 full-time faculty members and a large number of adjuncts in our department who are graduates of our program. Our students' research has been published in journals and presented at national research conferences. We actually have a dissemination requirement that is part of finishing the EDD. You don't just write your dissertation, you actually have to have a plan and some evidence that you've made efforts to disseminate that research to others. In 2018, CCSU was fortunate enough to be invited to join the Carnegie Project on the Education Doctorate, known as CPED. It's a national PLC of institutions that offer the EDD. And in our collaborative work with CPED, we've learned a lot and have incorporated ideas from other institutions into our program. And accordingly, we've gone through quite a lot of updates to our program over the last 3 years. and they've been showing impact fairly quickly, and we're really excited about a lot of those changes. What is an EDD? That's frequently a burning question for people who are looking into a program like ours. Most people are more familiar with a PhD and are curious about the difference. This is one area where our work with CPED has been helpful, since the CPED is again, a learning community of institutions from all over the country of lots of different types that offer EDDs. The CPED definition of an EDD is that it is the professional doctorate in education that prepares educators for the application of appropriate and specific practices, the generation of new knowledge, and for the stewardship of the profession. We subscribe to that definition as well. In a nutshell, the primary difference between a PhD and EDD is that, generally speaking, PhDs are more exclusively focused on research and the generation of new knowledge, and the EDD is most commonly associated with both research and the direct application of that research and other practices to the field of practical knowledge into specific fields. EDD is specifically related to education, so we're actually doing both of those things in EDD programs, and we think that that's both very challenging but also very meaningful work. Can I become a professor with an EDD? This is another common question. Not everybody wants to become a professor, but many people are interested if an EDD will qualify you for that. The short answer is yes, but qualified with it depends. Our program is not explicitly designed to prepare students for careers as professors, but it can happen. Having a doctoral program that has specific features and components that prepares people and trains people to become professors is honestly much more typical of PhD programs, especially residential PhD programs where you're going to school full-time and working at that university as a teaching assistant and or a research assistant, and you're in the office with the professors. You're really learning what it is to be a professor. In our program, it's a little bit different. All of our students are going part-time, essentially, and have full-time day jobs, so it's not realistic to have those types of opportunities. However, if you reach out to us, if you do come and join the program and you reach out to us along the way, we can really develop a mentoring and coaching relationship with you to prepare you for a career as a faculty member, if that's something that you're interested in. Like I said earlier, we have two members of our full-time faculty who are graduates of our program, and people who have worked elsewhere, and people who work as adjuncts at institutions across the state. In the P12 strand focus, becoming a professor of educational leadership, working within the area of teacher preparation or curriculum instruction is definitely possible because the content area lends itself well to those fields. With a higher education administration focus, becoming a professor of higher education itself is possible. One thing I like to make clear, though, is that other types of content area specializations or fields will very frequently require a degree specifically in that area, and most frequently a PhD. So, for instance, if you want to be a professor of history or English or chemistry, those are fields where you would be better served if you went to a research university and got a PhD in that particular area. When colleges and universities are hiring for full-time faculty, those are the types of things that they're frequently looking for. So you'd want to be sure that our program provides a degree that's relevant to the type of content area that you'd want to be a faculty member in. Now, that being said, the majority of our students are kind of aware of this and aren't necessarily looking to become professors, but it's possible. Our mission and vision in the program. The EDD at CCSU is designed to cultivate and develop transformational leaders across the P20 spectrum of education in Connecticut. Particular features of our program include a successful research-based cohort design which our students really love and come to us for. Learning experiences throughout the program that are based upon transformative adult learning theory. We are specialists in that area, and we really embed that into the design of the way we teach our courses. We focus on learner-centered instruction, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of active learning. Don't expect to come into our classes and be passive learners and sit and be lectured to the whole time. That's not what we do. We strive to have a balance of application to practice along with theory and research in the program. We're very committed to confronting inequality in educational practice. You will hear this talked about in most of your coursework. We have projects that are designed to make this real for you and for us out in the field. And you'll hear us individually talking about these issues on a regular basis. And we do that when we're talking with each other as well as when we're talking with you. And then finally, we have really high standards for professionalism and meaningful scholarship in our program. This is a leadership program, so we really expect our students to bring their best sense of themselves and their best sense of professionalism and commitment to their profession to the work with us. Our classes, we expect them to run a lot like a professional environment. And the scholarship that we like to produce, we really focus on having it be meaningful and less likely just abstract and esoteric. We want it to make a difference. So as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be our first, what we call a blended P20 cohort model. We will be serving students from both the P12 strand and higher education administration in this cohort. We're looking to have roughly half and half be the makeup of the cohort. This will provide opportunities to learn from each other in both specialization areas in our core classes, but you'll also have a minimum of 5 classes, maybe more, that are breakout classes where you will only be with people from your strand area and have an opportunity to really specialize in either P12 or higher education. In addition to those courses, many of you will have a supporting strand of 15 credits classes, typically 5 classes, and those will most likely be in your core specialization area as well. Research methods classes and a lot of our classes on organizational learning and leadership are completely applicable to both strands, and we think it's going to be really exciting to have the two groups together and learning from each other and talking about and exploring and developing new ways of looking at transition issues from, for instance, secondary education into higher education, and how we can really learn from and support each other. Because ultimately, many of the issues we face, especially in serving our students, are intimately related to challenges that both sectors face. We find that using this approach is going to acknowledge the shared investment in educating our citizens while also recognizing the unique aspects of each area, P12 and higher ed, respectively. In the program for this cohort, we're going to have a mix of face-to-face classes, hybrid classes, and some fully online course formats to offer flexibility to all of you. Our conventional P12 model has typically relied on a lot of face-to-face instruction. We'd like this model to explore some different territory, get more into the online space, but also still have that more intimate face-to-face contact as well. Now, this, of course, is a tentative plan. We'll have to look at the health conditions in our communities and on campus at the time. We are just coming back at CCSU this fall from being fully online for since the beginning of the pandemic, essentially for most classes. We did have some classes that were being offered face-to-face last year, but it was very limited and mostly at the undergraduate level. So our fingers are crossed that we'll be able to do more of that face-to-face instruction as we move forward. Our program structure, as we've talked about, it's cohort-based. Most, if not all, of your classes will be taken with your cohort or a subset of students from your cohort. There will be some electives that some of you take that will be with students from different program areas that may not be doctoral students. It's 48 to 63 total credits overall minimum. The difference there is that particularly for our students in the P12 area, if they have advanced postmaster's certification, for instance, a 092 certificate and or 093 certificate in building leadership and or the superintendency, based upon that additional coursework that's postmaster's, we can grant you credit for a waiver of 15 of the credit hours, which is essentially your supporting strand for the course. So you would do 48 credits. For P12 students who are currently in our 6-year program, which is a postmaster's program, and you want to transfer into the EDD program, we can take somewhere between 9 to 15 hours typically of your coursework to apply to the program, depending on where you're at in the 6th year. For higher ed students, most of you typically have not had the opportunity for that postmaster's coursework. If you do have postmaster's coursework, special types of certificates, things that you received college credit for, we will do a full transcript review and talk to you individually to see if there are if there's anything that you have in your experience on your transcript that we can use to give you some transfer credit for. It has to be postmaster's coursework, however. If students take a bit longer than the 3-year minimum to complete the program, for instance, you're working on your dissertation longer, there can be some additional credits that are associated with your continuing registration to stay in the program and keep working on the dissertation. So we have a goal of getting all of our students done in 3 to 4 years. We think that's very realistic, but every now and then people need to take a little bit longer. The blended cohort, as I said, will have many classes together, but also separate for specialization courses. Again, like I just made reference to, a minimum of 3 years to complete the program. The first 2 years are conventional coursework. At the end of the 2nd year, you will begin focusing exclusively on the dissertation, working with an individual advisor from the faculty, and putting a committee together to support your work to complete the dissertation. We have had more and more students be able to complete in that 3rd year, some drifting into the 4th, and a year to a year and a half to complete a dissertation is a very reasonable time frame if you're really on top of it yourself, taking the initiative, using time management, and you keep working. Sometimes people are challenged when they leave the regular coursework and move into the dissertation stage to keep working, because it really does rely a lot more on your own time management because you don't have that course structure as much to draw upon. But we're here to help you with that and to get through. During the first 2 years, we have intensive summer residencies in June and July. For this particular cohort model, that's going to look a little bit different. For our traditional P12 cohort, we have classes during the daytime, every day of the week. In July, we've designed this model to have an alternative structure. So all of our classes, summer, fall, and spring, will be evening, and they'll be online, and they won't meet every night of the week. So for instance, in the summer, you'll have, depending on which strand you're in, 1 to 2 courses in June, 1 to 2 courses in July taking place at the same time, and one of those classes in either session will meet most likely 1 weeknight a week, probably on Thursdays in the evening, and then the rest of your work would most likely be online. And there will be some variation depending on individual needs and what you might be taking for electives with that. In the fall and the spring semester, same type of thing. We're planning to have our regular core class on Thursday evenings, but you'll also have an asynchronous online class happening at the same time. And depending on your need for electives, you may have one other course that meets at another time. For all of our face-to-face classes, we try to schedule them as hybrids. So there will be face-to-face meetings on some weeks and online classes on some weeks, which may be synchronous or asynchronous. It depends on the course. And we think this flexibility is going to be helpful and really mix things up in terms of format and the types of learning opportunities that you have. Depending on your own particular planned program, how many credits you need to take, what your specialization and electives will be, you can expect to have 4.5 to 7.5 credits, 2 to 3 courses during the fall and spring semesters. That's a typo there for the Wednesday nights. It's most likely going to be Thursday nights for your core classes. And in the summertime, expect 8 hours during the summer. If you're in the P12 strand, 8 credit hours. If you're in the higher ed strand, it would be 9 to 12 hours. So 3 to, actually more, 8 to 11 hours, depending on which classes you're taking. Your dissertation work, as I noted, begins at the beginning of year 3. You have individual work with your faculty advisor, but during that year, we also have small group meetings with a small team of the cohort that you've been put together to work with. We'll probably break the cohort into 3 different teams at that point. And those teams and their respective advisors meet once a month in the 3rd year to go along with the individual work with your advisor. And we found that this is something we just started 3 years ago, and it's been very successful. Students like it, and it lets you still have some of that cohort feel and that support from your colleagues during the 3rd year, rather than being completely off on your own. And you can also learn from what other people are working on and struggling with their dissertations, and you get to hear from other advisors talking with the groups about their work. To the right here, you can see some of the content and skills in educational leadership and research that we emphasize in the program. We take a look at historical, social, and policy perspectives. We focus a lot on organizational studies and program implementation and evaluation. Deeper understandings of teaching and learning in both types of environments. P12 is going to be, a lot more nuts and bolts focused on classroom instruction and evaluation and coaching of instruction. At the higher ed level, we're thinking a bit more about curriculum and also our programming and student affairs and other areas that help students while they're on campus. Skills in leadership and administration. A lot of focus on soft skills, but also thinking skills around planning and systems analysis. Both qualitative and quantitative research methods are focused on throughout the program, and also a great deal on community engagement. And we'd love for you to come and talk with us more and learn with us about all of those issues. Courses and scheduling. I talked a bit about this, but just to go over it again, because this is something that's always important to people for their planning. Courses will take place weekday evenings and online. We're not planning to have weekend classes. And at a minimum, during a session, during a term, you can expect to have, during the first 2 years, one course that's meeting face-to-face, that's a hybrid, some online, some face-to-face instruction, and one fully online class at the same time. Core classes will typically meet on Thursday evenings, as I said. We need to be accommodating to your working needs. Typically, courses have started in the evening at 4:30 on our campus. We found that that's a little bit of a push sometimes for P12 people, especially if they're working in leadership roles, and certainly for our higher ed people that are working until 4 or 5 o'clock and may have some traveling to do to get to campus. So our classes in this cohort will most likely be starting at 6 p.m. That way you could even go home and have some dinner if you want before you come to campus. And we'll be ending around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, depending on the course. And of course, that's along with some online work. We'll have some classes in the summer, the fall, and the spring. For the higher ed students, there will likely be some winter session options for some of your electives. P12 students can specialize in either educational administration. If they don't have it, they can pursue coursework that will make them eligible for the 092 certificate. You can also, if you have that, you can also wrap in the coursework for the 093 and get the certification in superintendency if you're eligible for that program. P12 students can also focus in literacy. We have a collaboration with our literacy department to help people take classes for advanced certification in that area as well, either consultancy or specialist certification, and or general specialization in curriculum studies. The majority of our students, if they're taking supporting strand coursework, do it in the area of educational administration. For our HEA, or our higher education administration students, we have two different areas that you can specialize in. If you don't have a background in student affairs, we work with our counseling and family education department to allow our students to take their supporting coursework in their master's program in higher education and student development. There's a specific set of courses related to student affairs that you can take if you're interested in. If you don't want to do that, or if you already have perhaps a master's degree related to student affairs, we have within the department a set of specific courses designed for you in the area of organizational learning and innovation. Those focus on leadership skills for being a leader for innovation and change and transformational leadership in your organizations, and also courses in systems analysis and thinking and other areas. We'll work with each individual student to design a specific program of study and review all of your options. I am available for pre-advisement if you want to schedule a meeting. Half of my time on campus is dedicated to doing work as director of the program. I don't teach that much anymore. The courses I do teach are usually in the EDD program, so I'm very available to students now and throughout your program. And please, just because you're a prospective student, don't think you can't have access to me for consultations. I'm very happy to meet with you. I'm happy to take a look at your transcripts in advance. You could just email me unofficial copies, and we can start looking at possibilities for credit waivers depending on postmaster's work that you might have, or different specialization areas and what your pathway may look like. I like all of our prospective students and our admitted students to know where they're at and what their options are and what we can do for you before you even start classes. We want this to be a good fit for you and the right option. Let me say a few words about our faculty. I am biased, of course, but I think our faculty is great. Here are pictures of a few of them from left to right. That's myself, Dr. Tony Ryan, Dr. Ethan Heinen, Dr. Wangari Gichiru, Dr. Maria Mangillo, Dr. Sally Drew from the Literacy Department, and Dr. Jeremy Bazone. And we have many more faculty that work with us as well. You'll see a lot of different faculty members. A smaller group tends to teach most of the core classes, but we have a lot of people that also work as dissertation advisors and as committee members throughout the program. So we'll try to get you contact with as many of those people as you can. And certainly if I or other faculty know specific areas that you're interested in, we can try to get you in touch, early, or certainly at the time when you're working on your dissertation, get you in touch with faculty in other areas. And if you're in higher education administration, we can try to network and get you in touch with practicing higher education professionals either at our campus or at other campuses to be able to touch base with regarding what you're interested in. I noted that our faculty is supportive, available, collaborative, and knowledgeable. We're not just saying this, it's really true. I think one of the really defining characteristics of the CCSU EDD program is that we are extremely supportive of our students. We're very available, and particularly when you get to the stage of working on your dissertation, we work with you so closely that it's like night and day from what you might experience in a lot of other programs. I'm not saying we're the only ones to do that, but we are very well aware that in many programs, students are really left on their own at that point. And frequently I hear from students in other programs who are getting in touch with me and expressing their frustrations about that, and actually sometimes are interested in coming to our program just to finish their dissertation. And unfortunately, we can't do things like that. You need to do the rest of the program as well. But it's just an example of we really do believe in personalization. We work in this program because we believe in that. And if it wasn't personalized, most of us probably wouldn't really want to be involved with it. It's just who we are. And We've found each other, we hire with that in mind, so you can count on a good experience with faculty. I vouch for that myself if you come and work with us. A little bit about our department. Here's a snapshot of our enrollment from last spring 2021. We had 355 program majors in the department. We also had another 500 students who are not majors in our department, but actually probably more than 500, who took classes in our department as electives or as part of their programs. The 500 would be in undergraduate teacher education. We offer a lot of classes in that area as well. But in terms of program majors, everything's at the graduate level. We are a graduate-focused department in terms of our majors. Our largest program by far is the 6-year certificate program in educational leadership, which makes students eligible for the 092 certificate in intermediate administration for public school leadership. We have 200 to 250 students typically in that program at any one point in time. And those of you in the P12 area doing the EDD, if you don't have that certificate yet, you can do an abbreviated load of coursework, which is the state's minimum for eligibility for that certificate. And those courses, you can do that as your supporting strand. Basically, you can bundle the 092 coursework with the EDD. And once you graduated with your EDD, you would have done all the credits. You'd covered all 30 that you need to hold the 6-year certificate indefinitely. Next largest program in the department is the EDD. As of the spring semester, we had 44 students working in the pre-K-12 side. And we started a brand new cohort this past summer, so that number's up in the 60s now for P12. On the higher education higher education administration side of things, we hadn't done a cohort in a little while, so we had 11 students at that time. Mostly students that started with our 2018 cohort, and many students finished over the program in both strand areas. So of those 55 that were in the program in the spring, like 8 to 10 students completed their dissertations and graduated over the summer. So overall, we're somewhere in the 50s right now, and we're hoping to get a cohort together here of 20 to 25 students, which would take us back up into the 60s or 70s for overall program size by next summer, which is kind of the area that we like to hover around. It's not too big, not too small, and we feel like we have the capacity to serve that number of students very effectively. We also have a master's program in teacher leadership. That's mostly people from the P12 world that take that program. We have a master's program in educational technology, which pulls people from a variety of different areas into that program. And we also have an advanced official certificate of practice certification program that's a 1-year cohort program. We do one cohort at a time for the 093 certificate, which is the state certificate for being a superintendent in Connecticut public schools. We are one of only 3 programs in the state that offer the superintendent certificate. So that's a little bit of a look at our department. In terms of applying to the program, our admissions deadline is November 1 of 2021. There's a possibility that deadline might get extended a little bit. That happens sometimes if the graduate school wants to sees that there's a large number of applications kind of coming in late, but I'd plan on the November 1 for right now. That's what we're planning on. Minimum qualifications for the program are that you hold a master's degree in a relevant area to the program, respective to which strand you're applying to. That you have a minimum graduate GPA of 3.0. 2 letters of reference. We like to see those come from people, ideally, who have been supervisors, who have held leadership positions, or perhaps are professors that you've worked with that can testify to your capacity to an ability to do a doctoral program, which doctoral programs are challenging, regardless of where you go. So we like those letters to really speak to your abilities. We request that you submit an updated professional resume that reflects your professional and educational experience. That's actually a pretty meaningful document to us. We do require the GRE, the Graduate Record Examination. This is required of everyone. We don't typically make exceptions. You may have looked at our website last year and seen that the GRE was waived in 2020 for application. That was a one-time thing that was specific to the pandemic and COVID-related conditions. There was a period of time where there was a great deal of difficulty in finding access to examination sites because of stricter public health measures and social distancing. And that's even more complicated when you're using spaces like computer labs and sanitizing the computers. So we did waive that last year, but we're back to requiring it again. Be clear though, we do not have a cutoff score for the GRE. I'd be transparent. I do not recommend that anyone crams for the GRE or even that you go and take a class prep course for the GRE. Take it as you are and don't be too stressed about it. The reason for that is not that we don't value it, we do, but again, we don't have specific cutoff scores and we look at it as a holistic piece of your entire application package. Meaning that if your GRE's performance isn't, particularly great by your standards or by percentile rank, then be aware that there may be other aspects of your application, perhaps your professional experience, the quality of your admissions interview, your letters of reference that compensate for that. So we look at everything together. I will tell you that the most telling piece of the GRE that we look at is the writing score on the analysis of writing. Writing aptitude is the number one predictor in terms of standardized measures for success in a doctoral program, because there's a lot of writing. And you can imagine, particularly when you get to the dissertation, it's like writing a book in academic language that's an original creation of your own. You have support, but the experience is writing intensive and there's no way to get around that. So we do look at that, but again, there's no specific cutoff score there. So if you have more questions about the GRE, don't hesitate to ask me. Oh, also on the GRE, if you take, our application deadline is November 1. If you take the GRE in October and your scores aren't available yet, or we don't receive them yet by November 1, that's okay. It can come in a little bit later. Just please communicate that to us, and what would be a good idea would be to send me directly an email that or forward me an email that's a confirmation of your exam date, so I know when you took it, so we have that on record. And we'll proceed with evaluating your application and look at the GRE scores when they come in. Just know we can't give you an official formal acceptance until we have those. We also ask for a personal statement. There's a prompt in the online application for what we want you to write about. Please put your best writing forward. That's an opportunity to provide us an example of your writing ability. We do have an admissions interview. Those will be virtual right now. So after November 1, we'll do an initial review of all the applications that we have. We'll identify a pool of eligible applicants from that initial review, and we'll reach out to all of you to schedule individual admissions interview. The interviews typically are about 30 minutes in length. They're with 2 faculty members. It could be any 2 of us. I get volunteers from throughout the faculty to help me with doing those interviews. So I might not be in that interview myself. We have a standardized set of questions and a rubric that we use, and those all come back to me and the admissions committee to review. And we like to take the interview as an opportunity to get to know you a little bit at a personal level, to ask you some questions about why you're interested in coming in and working at CCSU, and what your initial thoughts are about the challenges of coming into a doctoral program, and what some of your interests are and your perceptions of the field that you work in. It gives us a chance to hear you talk in your own words about these issues that are important to success in the program. And then finally, if accepted, and this only applies to students applying for the P12 strand, if you do not have a 6th-year certificate already from any institution, or if you're in our 6th-year program and transferring, actually, this wouldn't apply to you because you would have had 590. We ask as a program prerequisite that everyone, again, only in the P12 strand, takes EDL 590, which is our introductory 6th-year course, as a program prerequisite. That course will be available, if you're admitted, that course will be available during this upcoming winter session at the end of the fall semester, short session between December and January. We'd have a special section just for students like yourselves in this cohort, so you'd probably be taking it with other new cohort members. And it's also offered in the spring semester. And we would need you to take that class before the summer as a program prerequisite. And that's not additional credits in the program. The 3 credits for that class would count and transfer into and count towards your overall credits for the EDD. If you're in that situation, I'll give you more details and talk to you about that more individually. But again, that's only for P12 students and only if you don't have a 6th year or even an equivalent of a 6th year from somewhere else. And that is it for application. Thank you for listening. If you have further questions, I encourage you to attend one of our information sessions. The dates and registration information for our virtual information sessions can be found online at our department website and the program page website. You can also reach out to me personally. My contact information is available online at all the program pages. And you can schedule a time to talk to me. I can do a virtual session with you. We can talk on the phone. Or if you really want to come in, we can make an appointment to talk in person and mask up on campus. And I'm really happy to spend that time with students. I said that before. I really do mean that. So don't hesitate. I'm happy to talk with you. And also, if you want a face-to-face group information session on Saturday, October 2nd, we will be having the Graduate Studies Open House on the CCSU campus from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you go to the CCSU website, you'll see some banners for that and some information to register to go to that. If you register for it, then we know you're coming, which is nice because we have an idea of numbers. We will have a in-person information session. I'll basically be talking about a lot of this information, but there will also be a time to talk to us in person then if you want to. And that's probably going to be from 12 to noon that day in a dedicated space. We'll have our own room to do that presentation. You can find more information online or by talking to me. So be in touch and take care.